everyone to another episode of the Reckless Comedy Podcast. This is season 2, episode 12. Wow, 12 episodes in. Nothing surprising there. We've not been cancelled by the community yet, which is great. Today's guest is a very exciting one. This guy is a New York actor from Madrid in Spain. After 20 years in Spain and halfway through business school, Pepe decided to move to New York City to study acting at AMDA. This guy can also be known as a past Jesus. He was most recently in the JCS, the concert in Regent's Park, which was a socially distanced adaptation of Jesus Christ Superstar. Those who have listened to this podcast before will know we've spoken a lot about Jesus Christ Superstar over the last nearly a year. I'm really excited to interview this guy. Please give it up for my guest, Pepe Nufrio, also known as Past Jesus.
Come on, kid. Yeah. Awesome, man. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you on. As we were talking about before we started, it's great to finally, talk to someone who's in a higher status.
Yeah, man. It was such an amazing time. It was actually, it was my first time in London.
Really?
It was so incredible because I was staying in Marylebone and I had never heard of Marylebone. So when I arrived, when the taxi took me to the apartment they provided, I was blown away by the city, blown away. I mean, Marylebone is gorgeous, and so is Regent's Park. So yeah, it was incredible. It was so incredible.
And what a bunch of circumstances to be in London as well.
Right. I kind of wish it would have been different because I would have been able to go out, socialize. I did socialize, but like fully socialize, get to know people, really see the city, go to museums, and do all these kind of things. I obviously wasn't able to do that. And our cast, we had 2 sets of leads. We had 2 Jesus, 2 Judas, and 2 Marys. And they did it that way just in case somebody got sick, somebody got COVID, they could remove that person and let the show go on. Because, show must go on.
Of course.
Yes. And, given that we were a social distance cast, we were always staying away from each other, like 2 meters apart. So it was pretty annoying, but, I didn't want to get sick because that would mean me leaving London, leaving JCS. So, I didn't do much in London, though I did walk a lot. I walked the whole city. It was beautiful, just beautiful. And the weather was incredible this summer.
I know. There was one day where here at Reckless, we were actually doing an outdoor comedy show in the bandstand, not far from where JCS was being done.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because our headliner got upstaged by the Overture.
Oh, wow.
So we were just about to finish our show when you guys were kicking up. Oof. And I think the headliner finished his set just as I think it was Ricardo was kicking up with Heaven on Their Minds.
Hell yes.
And I just keep saying to the guy all the time I see him, I'm like, this guy got upstaged by Andrew Lloyd Webber, for goodness sake.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And
it got to a point where I'm just there, I'm watching the comedy show and I'm like, I don't know where to focus. Do I focus on like Jesus Christ Superstar over there? Or do I focus on making sure this guy doesn't go over his time?
Totally. You should have focused on Jesus Christ Superstar, not gonna lie.
Of course.
Yeah, man. I remember walking, the nights that I wasn't on. I would do like from 4 to 5 shows, given that we had 9 shows a week. I would do 4 or 5 of them given on the week. And sometimes I would go for a walk around Regent's Park or something. And I would just listen. I would listen to, the Overture or Heaven on Their Minds, Simon Sellett's Gethsemane. And it was incredible. I mean, the sound system, if the listeners haven't been to Regent's Park, to the open air theater, they need to go watch a musical over there because the lighting, the sound, everything is just superb. The talent, it's just crazy. Yeah, man, it was such a fucking good experience.
Of course. Let's go back to where it all began. Is that a reference to JCS? I do not know. Someone will tell me if it is or not. Let's go back to where did your love for acting come from? Where did it all begin, really?
Right. So actually, I wasn't, my parents, they love music. They didn't know musicals because musicals in Spain, in Madrid, they really started like really becoming a thing and, gaining some kind of momentum in the last decade. So when I was young, like 20 years ago, we didn't have those many musicals, but in 2007, we had JCS. And I remember my parents got tickets for it, but of course I had never seen a show. So, I was like that kind of teenager. Oh, I don't want to go to the theater. This is lame. Of course, I didn't know any better. I remember going to the show and being blown away. It was just so insane. 3 years later, I watched Les Mis, the 2010 production in Madrid. And of course, I saw One Day More. And I was like, oh, great. Now I have to do this. I have to pursue this. At the time, I had a band. I was in a band with my buddies from high school because we all hated studying. I was a horrible student. And we had a band, and I just wanted to, once we finished high school and everything, I just wanted to keep going. And, thankfully, my parents supported me with the decision of moving to New York City. So I just moved to New York, studied there, and then I started working. But I think just music and the arts, they are in the family somehow,
Yeah.
So it just started like that. Just like I went to see the show JCS, then I saw Les Mis, and I just wanted to do it. I'm a little stubborn. When I said that I wanted to do it, I really wanted to do it, I guess.
I've sort of been there. You go into that headspace of, I don't care, I'm doing it. Right. No one can change my mind. No one.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
And it's interesting that JCS sort of sparked that.
I mean, for sure. I wouldn't say JCS is the typical musical.
No.
It was a rock opera first. You don't have scenes. It's a rock concert. Like if you listen to the music by itself, you're just, you are rocking it out. You're listening to the huge overture, then the end of the show, with Gethsemane, all that music. Then you have moments in which you're just dying to dance, like Simon Sellett's, or What's the Bus. It's just such an incredible musical, and I feel like it's the perfect show for anybody who has never seen a show to just go, check it out.
Yeah, JCS is one of those shows that, I feel like some people, and I think there'll be some of those people listening who will go, oh, JCS isn't really like, they're not JCS. Yeah, they're just like, it's JCS.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But then you've got this whole big sector of people who are just like Jesus Christ Superstar can be described as a masterpiece at the best of times, especially if it's done right as well.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing, this production of Regent's Park, our director, Tim Sheeter, our choreographer, Drew McCowney, they did it right. They did it right. The concept just works. I feel like after 50 years, Kim, you were just saying that next year or this year, right? It's going to be the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, next year it's 50th
anniversary of the show in London, in the West End. And man, in 50 years, it took 50 years of the show being alive for the right people to grab it and make the absolute best production. I just don't think how this can be any better. I just don't see it. I cannot picture a better production than the one we did this summer and a few years back in Regent's Park. It's just perfect, and I feel like they're going to keep polishing it. But for those who didn't catch the show this past summer in Regent's Park, I am sure there's going to be more productions without it. But yeah, JCS is a masterpiece without a doubt.
Of course. And talking about the social distance version, how did the call come around for it? I know we spoke a little bit about it before we started, but tell our listeners what like, what was your reaction when you got that call saying, look, we're doing it in Regent's Park, do you want in?
Right. So before doing this, before the pandemic, I was in the US tour of Jesus Christ Superstar. Same production, just the US tour. Same concept.
Mm-hmm.
And our director, it was, Tim Sheeter, the same director as Regent's Park. And they had cast me, well, not they, I had booked, before this whole pandemic thing, I had booked Evita. I was going to play Che at the Barbican.
Mm-hmm.
Evita got canceled, and with the pandemic. So I was in Spain because the tour also got canceled. Well, it got postponed, but I moved back to Spain because, I wanted to be with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And about 3 months in, I think this was like May or June, I got an Instagram text, an Instagram message from the casting director, from William Burton. And Will, he's like, hey, can I have your email? Tim Sheeter wants to talk to you. And I'm thinking, oh, this is about Evita. I'm thinking that Evita is going to come around. And then I got to talk to Tim, and he was like, hey, so we're gonna be putting together a production of Jesus Christ Superstar. And at first, there was, of course, huge excitement in me. But in the US tour, I had played the understudy for both Jesus and Judas.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, without, I jumped to the conclusion that this was going to be like an understudy position. But then he was like, do you want to play Jesus? Do you want to co-lead it with Declan Bennett? I mean, Declan is a beast. He is fucking incredible. So when he told me that I was going to be a co-lead, I was blown away. Like immediately. I feel like during the pandemic, the first months of the lockdown, I kind of like lost my interest in singing because there was so much going on in the world that I'm like, what am I singing for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just didn't feel right to just be in my house, just singing while people were struggling. And as soon as I got that call, I was like, let's get to work. I started singing that same day. And yeah, man, it was incredible. It was incredible. Super exciting.
Excellent. And then fast forward to the rehearsals, as you were saying, that first day when you went into rehearsals, everyone was sort of treading the water. What was it like going back into the rehearsal room for this version of JCS? And what were the measures like in place?
It was very interesting because we were a social distance production, and therefore we couldn't hug each other. And I mean, Kim, you as an actor, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
Actors, we are always hugging, always kissing. It's a mess.
Yeah.
We're a mess. And we couldn't do any of that. So it was very, very weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kept our distances. We were wearing our masks. So you couldn't really read the room. I mean, you could read the room because everybody was super excited, but you couldn't really like look at someone's face and get the information.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a little weird. And on top of that, all of us were very scared of the show because for the people who have seen the show, they know how demanding it is. And for those who have listened to the audios or the recordings,
yeah,
you can imagine how demanding it is. And Drew McCowney's choreography is incredible, but also very hard and demanding. So everybody was kind of scared, being like, "Oh, I don't know what's gonna be like. I haven't danced or sang in a bit." But it took us like a week for all of us to be on our prime. Everybody was so on their game, and also just because nobody had been on, we hadn't been on a stage for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was so excited, and every single member of the cast was always 110%.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Yeah.
It was insane. Everybody was so strong on their, not only just their talents, but everybody was always ready for everything. They were like, try this, and we'd be like, 100%, we'll try it. We'll do whatever you say, because everybody was so excited. And when we started the show, when we started the production and we had an audience, oh, it was insane. Like the show would start and the audience would be already crying. Just the excitement of people coming back to the theater in such a theatrical city as London is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, we were the first show to open after the original lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was, man, it couldn't have been a better experience. It honestly was the best. I don't know if
I know, right?
I honestly don't know if Kim, I don't know if I'm gonna live through anything that's gonna top this experience. You know, I'm sure I'm gonna be in the future, maybe in bigger shows or something, just career-wise, you know. But I don't know if they're gonna be, you know, because of the circumstances. It was just so special.
Of course, it really was. It was a treat to see. And
Yeah.
as I mentioned before the show, this podcast started, you know, the arena tour sparked my interest in
Mhm.
JCS as a show. You know, for me, I'm atheist, so I'm sort of like, religion isn't my sort of forte, so to say.
Yeah.
And I think JCS sort of put me in a mindset of going, you know, the whole concept, you know, the last days of Christ through the eyes of Judas.
I mean, that's crazy.
It's on paper, I think someone described it once as, on paper, it shouldn't work on paper, but somehow it does.
Yeah.
It
For
does.
sure. But I mean, you gotta keep in mind that the story of Jesus, you know, 2,000 years later,
Yeah.
the Bible and it's church and it's this whole thing. But back then, it was only two guys. You know, it was Judas and him, two best friends, and different paths, and a huge love between them that made Judas do what he did. So that's how we played it. It's like we're just brothers. We love each other, and you know, we are just disagreeing, and that's what makes the show so brilliant. Because the moment that you start to play Jesus, then things get weird. Because you know, how could you ever play Jesus? That's just you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I've heard from interviews from all different productions at JCS. One of the common things is that, especially with Judas as well, I've heard some actors say it takes them into a weird mind space. Like it makes them really think deep down about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just here like, can someone please give me the opportunity to play Judas, please? Like, you know, everyone's just like, you know, they're like, oh yeah, it's really deep. And it's like, look, with the deepest respect, please let me play Judas. You know, Judas is just that character, you know, that you wouldn't expect him to sort of be like the forefront really of a musical.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think all of our minds, when we think of Judas, we think bad person, you know.
Yeah.
It really isn't. It's just a person who, you know, he thought his friend who he loved and admired was making a mistake, and he tried to stop him, but he didn't try to like have him killed. That's just the aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And yeah, we played it like that. And my two Judas, Tyrone and Ricardo, God, they were incredible. They were incredible. I mean, speaking of voices, they're just insane. Just insane.
Yeah, I think before I went to see JCS in Regent's Park, there was originally like a recording around on social media of I think when Ricardo was playing Judas back in the Barbican in 2019.
Right.
And I remember listening to, I think it was Last Supper, that first time hearing Ricardo towards the end of Last Supper. I genuinely was quite thrown back. Yeah. I was just like, I have to see this guy live. I need to.
It's just they are both so different. Tyrone has a huge voice that doesn't see a limit. Like he just keeps going. And his voice, I like to describe it, as a channel, as a column of just like voice and power. You know, as the singer's voice keeps going up in notes, you know, higher in notes, it tends to get smaller. It just makes sense. But Ty's voice just doesn't do that. It's great. So when he's singing Heaven on Their Minds and he goes, Jesus! Oh, it's insane. And when Ricardo does it, he's just a rock god.
Yeah.
And when he sings it, it's just like, oh my God, who's this singer? They're both insane. And that's the really cool thing about our summer and our show is that different nights we had different casts.
Mhm.
And one day you had a different Mary or a different Jesus or a Judas. It was really fun. You never really got settled into it in a very positive way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it was also interesting seeing like the adaptations that were made to the show to coincide with social distancing. That's the name. The betrayal. The betrayal was, I think, the most interesting thing.
Yeah.
To see.
Yeah. Right.
For those who didn't see the show, I don't know if Pepe can sort of explain how those sort of elements were put together and how they went along if you didn't see the show.
It was a lot of thinking. Like the director would have an idea of what we could do, and then somebody would come along and say, hey, that's not 2 meters apart, and we would have to tweak it, or we'd have to hide glitter somewhere on stage. The betrayal, when Judas betrays Jesus, the priests, they come out with like a kind of like, how do you call it?
Like a crate sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, filled with silver glitter.
Mm-hmm.
And Judas puts his hands on it. And it was funny, when he's done with it, he couldn't close it because Judas didn't bring that box out. So the priest had to close it. And because he couldn't touch the part that Judas touched, he would close it with his cane. Oh, it was all sorts of complicated. But in the end, the hard work and the thinking through it, they put so much thought into it that it looked beautiful. Not only did it look beautiful, but it was also safe. It was perfect. I like to shout out to Tim Sheeter, Drew McCowney, and Tom Scott. Tom Scott he's our designer. They did an insane job, and they took a huge risk to bring the show to London. Regent's Park open air theater, they took a risk because this could have been shut down like 2 days into it. Somebody could have gotten the virus and nobody did, and that was kind of, I see it as a gift from Regent's Park open air theater to the city of London.
I'm just looking at some of the production shots from that show, and I'll get them up on the screen in a second. And the one that's most interesting for me is the way the 39 lashes were done, and the fact that Jesus is sort of bound with microphone wires. I find that really interesting how they did it with with microphone wires instead of rope. I don't know if I presume the reason why they did microphone wires. I do believe Tim spoke about that in a Q&A once, but I couldn't remember off the top of my head what he said about the idea of the microphone wires and everything.
Right. Well, the reason why they used microphone wires instead of rope is because the idea of like Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus Christ Superstar is, oh, here we are. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a concert first. It was a rock opera first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So therefore, the music has to be present, and that's why the rope is the music. So it's not. I think they were trying to break with all the idea of like Jesus Christ with the Romans. Well, not with the Romans, but with the. I don't know. They wanted to connect the music in a deeper level, and that's why they brought the chords. In this production, JC, Jesus Christ, he's a rock star. I mean, he grabs the mic and he goes, "Why sure you want to know?" So he always has the mic. Yeah. It makes sense for him to have the microphone be his handcuffs. That's just part of the narrative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looking back at the cast list for this, some of the names and some of the people in this production are absolutely brilliant. As you said, Tyrone and Ricardo as Judas. Mm-hmm. One of the things loads of people always keep saying when it comes to JCS, and especially productions like this, is the question of who's the better Jesus and Judas. It's a question that comes up all the time. You got the diehard fans of JCS who will say, Ted Neely from like the 1970 film. Uh-huh. But then you've got people who, in the more modern times, for example, like with the arena tour and then the open air versions, People are like, oh no, Tyrone's the best Judas. No, Ricardo's the best Judas. No, Tim Minchin did a relatively good job despite getting auto-tuned.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it's all down to personal preference,
Oh, for sure. I feel like everybody agrees that Pepe Nufrio is the best Jesus ever. I think that's the common consensus.
Yeah, definitely. People like that. That's genuinely true. I think a lot of people were.
Definitely not. I think I personally, there he is. I personally love Ted Neely's Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Neely's Jesus is insane. I mean, I've listened to him sing Gethsemane a billion times. His rock voice is incredible. I actually, a little story here about Ted Neely and how he came across Jesus Christ Superstar.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Neely, I listened to this interview on YouTube. I'm sure it can be found. But essentially, he was saying how, he was a drummer before he became Jesus, really.
Wow.
He was a drummer of this band, and he was in LA, and they played a gig. And after the gig, they were at this bar, and I'm paraphrasing, by the way, but they met up in this bar with some actors. And, Ted was talking to these actors about what was the process of being an actor like. And these actors were like, hey, we're doing an audition tomorrow. Do you want to come? And he was like, sure, I'll go. And apparently he showed up to the audition. They told him to, he actually signed up to go in there. He sang. And I think it was for the Jesus Christ movie. And he went in for, I don't know if he went in for Judas or Jesus, but then he ended up booking Jesus. And I mean, the rest is history, The guy has played it. To this day, I think he's still playing Jesus.
Yeah, he's still playing it every so often.
That's crazy. He's so old.
I know, right? Like, as far as I'm aware, he's the oldest guy now to be playing Jesus.
He's too old. Bless his heart. He's so old. And he's still singing like, Gethsemane is hard. It's hard. I just cannot imagine. But I also cannot imagine not being able to sing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it must be so frustrating to get old and not be able to sing things that you used to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I think Ted Neely's my guy.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously, as those who are watching the video version can see, we've got good old Ricardo as Judas with the silver paint. I think first time someone told me about the use of like the glitter and the paint, I was like, okay, interesting move, especially with the silver. You wouldn't expect for Judas to have like silver, really. You wouldn't expect that. I think a lot of people that I've spoken to, they would expect, because of perfect line, blood money, they'd expect, the blood to be on his hands.
Exactly.
The fact they went with silver paint really sort of intrigues me.
Well, the silver paint mimics the blood, instead of it being blood, just because it's a concert and this whole cool idea around JCS, they did silver. That's his damn for all time gesture. He dips his hands in this bucket that the priests offers him. So it does resemble blood, but yeah, they went with silver, and I think it's gorgeous, And then later you have Jesus with all the golden glitter on him. So you have that duality of, the glitter, the silver in Judas, the gold in Jesus. And the gold, I think the gold is a fabulous idea. I don't quite remember why Tim, the director, he explained it to us on the tour, but it was something to do with all these followers. They turned Jesus into something, goldish, something so I don't want to say loved, but of such high value,
Of course. And what was it like getting covered in that glitter for however many times you ended up getting covered in glitter? Was it easy to get off in the end, or?
Yeah, actually it was quite easy. In the US tour, because we had no. In the US tour, it was actually harder, because here, essentially in London, we had to apply it to ourselves because of the whole COVID thing. And in the US tour, we had 2 people put makeup on us. So they would actually put makeup, and make bruises and everything. It looked different. I wonder if people would like one or the other one better. It looked incredible in the Regent's Park 2020 production, but it was actually way harder on the US tour. You would spend minutes and minutes, like from 30 to 45 minutes in the shower trying to get all that stuff. And in London, it was way easier. Just a little bit of water. Well, not a little bit of water, but you would get it out in like 15 minutes. Yeah, but then you would get home, and the next day you would find glitter everywhere. Everywhere. You would literally.
I can imagine. You'd just be like, oh, glitter, cool.
I'm not kidding. Like, you would go to the bathroom, like wipe your ass and find glitter. I'm not kidding. It's like that. And to this day, I still find glitter around me. Not every so often, but like the other day, a few days ago, I hadn't seen glitter in a long, long time. I'm guessing it was in my backpack or somewhere. But I pull something out and I see a piece of gold glitter on the floor. I'm like, oh, you gotta be shitting me. Yeah.
I can imagine it's just like, oh no, not again.
Not again, not the glitter, not another production of JCS.
It's like, as much as I would love to do it, not again.
Not again, please don't bring me back. Yeah, man.
I can just like imagine that, like just imagine you encounters Jesus. Oh no, not the whipping again. I went through it once.
I'll do it again as many times as possible. This picture right here, this is during Superstar. And it was the best moment of the evening. All Jesus had to do was climb, all the way up on stage, all the way upstage, and place himself on this cross we would create on the go. But that climb, he would be like super pain in like all this pain, and he'd be dragging himself up the stairs. And Tyrone or Ricardo would be screaming, singing you down. And the whole cast was just singing with them and dancing. And the band was like in this climax with the lights and the music, everything. It was epic. It was epic. I think like one of the first nights I was climbing up towards the cross, and I started laughing. I was like, oh, Pepe, you really cannot be laughing right now. Like, you're about to die.
I love that. Get that on the t-shirt. Come on, you can't be laughing. You're about to die.
Right. I'm like, be an actor. You're about to die. Just get into my fucking mindset, Pepe. Do it.
I can imagine the inner monologue, like the audience is looking at you, and inside your brain is like, shut the fuck up. Just shut up.
Pepe, you fucking idiot. They gave you this chance and you're gonna blow it. Stop laughing. But it was just so epic. It was so epic. You couldn't stop smiling. And
of course, the one song which I think most people genuinely enjoy and they mainly go to JCS for is, of course, Gethsemane. Of course, we do, as you guys heard in the start of the episode, Pepe kindly sent us a recording of Gethsemane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane to be hearing that again. It's so many good memories. And of course, we're looking at a picture of Declan Bennett as Jesus. I find it interesting how they've done Gethsemane this time around with, like Jesus playing the guitar. You wouldn't normally, in any other production, like with the arena tour, normally it's just the band doing the guitar. But the fact they've got, Jesus with the guitar, with the microphone in front,
Oh, it's epic.
And it just goes everywhere. I think I remember watching the video and the guitar ends up just on the floor.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole show, this whole production spins around the concept of Jesus and Judas, them being like rock stars, and Jesus has to sacrifice himself for the greater good of this band. That's kind of what we have going, even though the audience doesn't read that, but that's the whole thing. That's why we have the guitars, the microphones, trying to stick to that notion of like, this is a rock opera, because it was a rock opera before it was a musical. So the concept album, it made the musical. Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice, they released this album and people loved it, and that's why it became a Full House musical. But it's super interesting. And if the listeners, if they haven't listened to Gethsemane by Declan, I invite them to like YouTube it, because I know it's there.
Yeah,
and it sounds so epic. Declan is just incredible.
Yeah. We're just looking. I'm looking at the wonderful cast and creatives behind it. You know, as we mentioned, Ricardo Afonso as Judas alongside Tyrone Huntley. Yeah. Of course, Josh Hawkins, who was also covered Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all the shows that you did during that run, how many did you end up doing?
I didn't call out once. Neither did Declan, Ricardo, or any of the leads, or Ty, or the Marys. But you have to bear in mind that we had 4 to 5 shows a week, so we had plenty of time to rest. And it was also the summertime, so we were very careful. And I surprisingly, I don't get sick anymore because we are always wearing these masks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that prevents you from getting sick, and also the social distancing and everything. You just don't get sick anymore. So people weren't sick. The ensemble, they did. A couple of members needed to take a break every so often because they were doing 9 shows a week. 9 shows a week with only Monday off. But then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 3 show days. That's brutal. With all the singing and dancing, it's just bananas. So yeah, man.
Like for me, I can as an upstarting actor myself, I can just about get through like a 2 or 3 show day where it's like, I think there was one show I did, not as obviously high action as JCS, if high action is the best word to describe it. But I think there was one day where we had a show at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we had another one at 7. But because the show went on for 2 hours, like for me, it's a weird headspace for me as an actor. Because when I go backstage, I will continue, I will just before I go backstage, I'll be, talking to everyone and everything. And as soon as I go through that backstage door, I don't know if any other actors have this, but you go into a weird headspace where I would just separate myself from everyone, just separate it. And then I wouldn't come out of that headspace again until I come out of that door.
Right. Well, every actor has their process, especially, in this show, Judas and Jesus, they go through a lot. I mean, Judas kills himself in the show and Jesus gets crucified. So it's a lot of emotion. And even though this was a quote unquote concert, it really was a full-on show. And we were really acting our hearts out. So on 2 show days, sometimes we needed to, take a good break, take a proper nap, get some good food, good quality food, and, chill for a little bit. But 2 show days can be really hard, really hard. All actors know that.
I think definitely with this production, I think two shows a day would have definitely been the limit. I can't imagine the cast that were involved would be able to do 3 days. 3 shows in one day. Well, they could have. I reckon you guys probably would have been able to pull it off, but I think it would have had some massive sort of after effect to it.
Yeah. Well, the theater took huge care of us. We had a physical therapist with us once or twice a week. Taking good care of our bodies. Taking good care of our bodies and all that good stuff. So yeah, man, we were taken care of. And even though the leads we were only doing from 4 to 5, the castmates, they appreciated that because all the dancing 9 times a week, that's just nuts.
Crazy.
And also you have to take this into consideration. In the past productions, the dancing would be traveling dancing, So you would move forward when you were doing the moves. Here, everybody was stationary. And that's harder because you're not used to dancing stationary on stage. You're always traveling. And here you had to do it on place. That means less air running through you, all this stuff. So yeah, man, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I think definitely with I think for me, having on their minds was interesting to look back at. There used to be a video of like Ricardo's Heaven on Their Minds from the most recent one, but then that somehow just disappeared. And it was interesting watching, you know, with Heaven on Their Minds, Judas being up here, especially the 2 meter thing, you know, Judas being up here, and then Jesus sort of like turning around, looking, and then moving like completely diagonal. It was,
Yeah.
and then you look at any other production where, you know, Judas would be like, you know, grabbing Jesus and trying to physically talk to him. The message is still there, but it was just weird. And I think the video I saw, I think it was Declan and Ricardo at the front. And
Yeah.
it was weird. It was like, it was clever and weird. And as I say, you know, the cast were absolutely brilliant. Pilate as well.
Oh, yes.
Oh, God. I absolutely loved. I think Pilate as a character is just...
Pilate is epic. If I was to play anybody on the show other than Jesus and Judas, it'd be Pilate. I mean, Pilate is just fun. And the dilemma that Pilate finds himself in. I mean, he has this dream. Well, in the real story in the Bible says that it was Pilate's wife who had the dream, and then she told him. But in the show, it was Pilate. And he has this dream that he's going to crucify this person. And that's really going to be the end of him. You know, people will remember him for what he did, which is to eliminate the most famous people in human history. And I mean, can you imagine trying to save him? But Jesus is like, no, you got to kill me, because this is what we got to do. You got to put me on the cross.
I can imagine that conversation. Look, I know you don't want to, but look, promise me, I can promise you it will work.
That's the fight. That's the lashes and Pilate and Christ, that whole thing, that back and forth. And he has the mob. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. He has the mob being like, crucify him, crucify him. And he's trying to explain, and he's also trying to get Jesus to say, yeah, don't kill me. But Jesus has already said Gethsemane, he is on board to get crucified. He's committed to his destiny. Do you know what I mean? So it's just,
yeah.
it's just like fighting, and oh man, it's crazy. Pilate, it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah. Okay, this is going to be an interesting question.
Yeah.
With JCS, obviously you've understudied as Judas in the US. You also obviously played Jesus in Regent's Park.
Mm-hmm.
If you could choose one other male character in the show, who would you love to play? So out of like Simon, Peter, or Herod?
Simon, Peter, or Herod? Ooh, this is a very interesting question.
I just realized I also missed out Caiaphas and Annas as well. The 2 main guys, you missed them out.
Well, they're only in the show for like 12 minutes.
I know, right? Everyone else, like, it's funny. Like, everyone's just like...
Everybody else is working. And here you have the priests and Pilate, who are just not doing much. But if I had to play somebody, I think I would go with King Herod.
Really?
Just because how different it is, you know? His song is just so fucking awkward. I'm not gonna lie to you. I remember the first time I watched the movie, the JCS movie, I was like, what the fuck is this number?
Yeah, that was my reaction as well. The original Herod, anyone who's seen the original film, that original Herod just like, even when I look back at it now, and I'll probably look back at it after this episode, and I just look at it and I'm like, fuck.
Exactly. It's like, you feel like, yikes, but I gotta keep watching, you know? So I feel like I would like to play, I wouldn't mind playing him just for like what could come out of it. Because, you know, if it's there, it is for a reason. And King Herod has somewhat, the one song is just the one journey. And you have to complete his story arc in the one song. So that's really cool. You know, it has to be very effective. Yeah, I feel like it could be fun.
To be fair, I was not expecting you to say Herod. I would have thought Pilate. No joke. In all respect, I can imagine you as Pilate.
Pilate would be really, really fun and incredible as an actor, but King Herod would be a hell of a challenge.
Yeah.
A hell of a challenge. If I had to pick somebody out of Jesus and Judas, it would be Pilate. But if I couldn't pick Pilate and I had to pick something, I would go with Herod.
Yeah.
Definitely not Peter. Definitely not Peter.
Peter, like I've said this on so many occasions to people, and they don't like it when I say it. It's just like Peter's barely in it.
I hate Peter.
Like I also, yes, people might hate the character, but he's there. You know, he does barely anything for the whole show. And what happens? They give him and Mary a duo. Or in some productions, they have Mary, Peter, and Judas. It's like, hang on a minute, what's Judas got to do with this?
That's true, but I hate Peter, and I like the character of Peter. I don't have anything about the Peter or the actors who have played Peter before. It is a problem that I also was the understudy for Peter in the US tour. And of course, I was super focused on Jesus and Judas.
Of course.
And, Peter was like there on the side. And the actor who played Peter in the US tour, he was like, Pepe, listen, he has been on multiple tours before. He was like, Pepe, don't worry, I don't usually get sick. I'll let you know if anything comes up. But you can chill. I was like, great, I'll chill. So I chilled. But I also was preparing for Jesus and Judas. And Peter, in this production of Jesus Christ Superstar, in this concept, he plays a lot of guitar.
Yeah.
I play guitar, but I'm not as good as Peter. Peter has to be a good guitar player, like solid. He has all of these things. Like there are moments in which he only plays guitar. Like in Pilate's Dream, he plays these beautiful arpeggios. Oh, it's gorgeous. So when I booked it, they were like, hey, you're going to be Peter as well. I was like, great, I'll be Peter. And then they told me that he had to be this good at guitar. And I freaked out.
You were like, oh, shit.
Exactly. I was like, fuck. I got super nervous. I was playing all the time, like trying to get it. And eventually I got it. But one day I'm in some place in the States. It was really snowy. I don't quite remember. Iowa. Not Iowa. I don't know.
I barely know the US anyway.
Somewhere in the north of the United States. It was super cold. It was all snowed. And I get a call from the stage manager. And usually when that happens, I'm like, oh, hell yes. I'm playing Judas or Jesus tonight. Hell yes. So I get the phone call and he's like, hey, Pepe. Like, hey, Alan, how you doing? Shout out to Alan Knight if he ever listens to this. But he's like, yo, Pepe. And, he listened to my excitement. He was like, oh, I wouldn't get this happy. I was like, oh, fuck. Don't tell me this. And he's like, yeah, Tommy, who plays Peter, he's out. I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. I was like, can you actually call the second understudy? And he was like, no, Pepe, you are the first understudy. You gotta do it. I'm like, but the other understudy knows it better than me because I'm always doing the Jesus or Judas track in rehearsals. And he was like, no, you gotta do it. So I got to the theater, panicked. I was shaking. And we got through it. And the cast was super supportive. They were the nicest. And we fucking got through it.
I can imagine if that was me and they had said, right, you're playing Peter, I'd be like, oh, hell no. Pick someone else, please.
I was this close to fleeing the country. I was this close to leaving everything behind and going to Mexico that quick.
I can imagine that, like, just there trying to call you, Pepe. Pepe.
Yeah, I'm not here, sorry. I'm leaving. I'm done.
And then they just look outside and they see you getting into a cab. It's like, no.
My bags, my suitcases. Yeah, totally.
Like you're getting into a cab, just screaming out Gethsemane. Like, imagine that.
I should have done it. Why did I do the show? I should have just fucking left.
You had the opportunity to play Jesus in the back of a cab. In the back of a cab.
One to say, oh no, but that would have been hysterical.
In the back of a cab, of all things. Yeah. Or just like start shouting at the stage manager. No, if you have to, kill the Jesus actor. Kill the Jesus and let me take over.
I thought of all these things. You can name me any kind of scenarios. I thought of all of them. I wanted to do them all. I wanted to kill everyone and then this, that, leave the country. kill myself. It was, man, I was ready for it all. But at the end of the day, I did it. I got on that stage and I played Peter for the one and only time. I don't want to ever do it again.
Of course. And obviously with you understudying Judas, my question is there one out of all the songs that Judas sings, this is sort of a two-part question. The first bit is there a Judas song that stands out the most for you? And then the second one is, I can't remember the second half. Oh God, this is professional. But yeah, is there a Judas song that sticks out the most for you? Yeah. And the second part, why?
Well, this is hard. All of them are incredible, because the main difference between Jesus and Judas is that, well, not the main difference, but one of the differences is that Jesus is always singing here little bits and pieces, and then he has Gethsemane, which is his big song. He sings for 6 minutes almost, and then he goes back to little things. Meanwhile, Judas, he comes out and sings for 3 minutes and gets out of stage for like 20, and you don't see him again until the second act, and then he sings a full song and this kind of stuff. That's the main difference between them, and well, one of the differences, and that's why all of Judas' songs are just incredible. But if I do have to pick one, I'll go with "Damn for All Time."
Interesting.
It's just the guitar, the da na 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 da da da, and then you have the saxo solo, and then you're screaming high D's. Oh yeah, man, that's a hell of a song. That's the best song
for me, and I think for quite a few people. Is a moment with Judas for me is when he reprises "I Don't Know How to Love Him" every single time. That just, anyone who I've taken to see a version of JCS, they always break at that point, because it just comes out of nowhere.
It comes out of nowhere, and it's so beautiful, and especially because everything is so high, and then everything high in intensity. Both the voice of the actor, he's singing out, and the music, and all of a sudden it's just the acoustic guitar, and I don't know how to. It's just so chill. It's like the space, everything stands still for a second. And he finally says why he does what he does. He doesn't understand him. He loves him.
And of course, with like Ricardo's version, anyone who's heard Ricardo sing that bit, the silence before, and then as soon as it kicks in, if it doesn't break you, you're not even alive. Like,
yeah.
And I think the last picture we'll look at is from the US tour. Of course, that whole that is like that. Just that picture of the crucifixion is brilliant. And I do find it interesting how they've done the crucifixion with Jesus on. You'd think with the crucifixion, in some versions, you've had Jesus on a wooden cross. You've had, especially with the arena tour, you had Judas at the start of Superstar come down on a lighting truss from the ceiling, and the cross is a load of lighting trusses. But this interests me, and obviously, like, the set between the two productions are so different. So, like, with the US one, you've got, I think the best way to put it is I call it the many crosses, because the amount of crosses made in that set is crazy.
Yeah.
And then you look at Regent's Park, the most recent one, and the set they were using for that was the old Evita set.
Correct. It was actually so interesting. The Evita cast, they were so upset.
I can imagine they were like, "Hey, that's our set." And it's like, no.
Actually, they were like, "Why didn't you put us on stage? Why couldn't we do Evita?" I was like, "No, it's just crazy. It's just better." Even though Evita is great, but yeah, it was such a different set. But I mean, look at this photo. This photo, just the lights, the blues with the orange, all the people on stage, and live theater. We need to get it back as soon as possible.
Of course, and it's just so interesting how they've done the cross with this one. The fact that really, I think the best way to describe it, I might get this wrong, it's really a speaker stand, really.
Correct. 100%. And an interesting fact about it, that for the people who haven't seen the show or that are not seeing the video podcast, that in the middle of the cross, of the big cross that it's laying on the floor, has like a rail, So they would hook it up and they would like lift Jesus and then pull him back, you know. So he would be in this motorized kind of cross going backwards. And it would like put you up front and it would leave you hanging ever so slightly, but you would still have kind of an angle. So on one of my first nights as Jesus ever, I was on the cross, and after the whole singing and everything, when he's like, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing, I'm like shaking and acting like I'm dying. And in one of these ones, I leaned forward just a bit too much, so the cross went a bit too forward. So I thought I was falling. And here in the picture, you can see that we are almost naked. We're just wearing like these pants that have been ripped. We were wearing no t-shirt, no shoes. Imagine if you were to fall from there. It would be painful as hell.
I can imagine.
And I was yay close to falling because I moved too much. I never again moved.
It's interesting to ask, how was obviously this is the crucifixion we're looking at now was with the indoor set of JCS. What was it like doing it outdoors, and how was it adapted to go with the social distancing to do the crucifixion? Because obviously you, in other versions, you'd have, people putting Jesus onto the cross. But with this, I presume you had to do it all by yourself.
Yeah, we did. So essentially the mic stand that we were using throughout the whole show, in Gethsemane, we, in the whole emotion of the big moment, when he's super upset and he throws his guitar, we would throw the mic to the floor and we would leave it there. No actor, nobody would touch it. And then at the end of the show, during Superstar, that's when Jesus, after the lashes, he's like all in pain and bloody and everything. He would like grab the mic stand, put it on his back, and climb up to the top step, and then he would essentially crucify himself.
Self-crucifixion. Wow.
Right. But it was, the way I saw it, it was like a throwback to when Jesus actually had to carry the cross, as he did, So it was like that. Oh, here we have, this is in Superstar. This is the very end of Superstar. And here you cannot see Jesus, but here's in the back, behind all this light on the cross.
Yeah, the lighting really helped, especially with Regent's Park. With Regent's Park, the lights are underneath the floor, which is, every so often you'd see like the cross in the lights. And it was like, what?
Oh yeah, incredible. And actually, if you look in this picture, if you look at the people on the right, you see a girl on the shadows, then you have the person on the very, very right, this blonde dude. He also played Herod. And then somebody behind it, that's Pepe right there.
Oh yeah, I can just spot you.
That's me right there, just dancing my heart out. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and I can imagine you just say, I wish I was not standing here. I want to be up on that thing in front of me.
Well, sometimes I did, but when I first booked the show in the US, they offered me to be only the understudy. I was going to be a swing for both Jesus and Judas and not be in the ensemble. And I fought for it. I was like, no, I really cannot be in the sidelines, not dancing to this music every night. Like if I listen to this music, I want to be in the ensemble. I cannot be off stage every night because I'd be, like not well. I had to do it.
Of course. And obviously, just to conclude with this whole interview, which has been absolutely brilliant talking to you, Pepe. It's been an honor, really. And hopefully it won't be too long again until you can get back on stage. You never know. Eventually, we might cross paths.
We will, without a doubt, because this podcast is popping.
I know, right? Just imagine, like, they do it at Regent's Park again. I'm just there, I'm going, Pepe!
Yeah, please.
And you're just there, like, don't distract me.
Because I'm trying to focus on the death, and I'm trying not to smile, so please stop.
Yeah, or as most actors I know would do, they sort of like twitch their head and sort of go, yeah, I know it's you. Just
yeah, just a little wink.
It's like, stop laughing, I'm dying. Can someone please get that on a t-shirt? We genuinely do. But to end on, Pepe, normally in the podcast we give people, our guests, their chance to promote anything they've got coming on. Obviously, shit is happening right now, So there's not really a lot for people to look out for. Of course, hopefully when the US tour kicks back up again, you might see Pepe playing Judas or Jesus, and maybe on one off chance you might see him as Peter. But
probably not.
But yeah, this is your chance to promote any social media platform that you want people to follow you.
The US tour will be coming back. So for all the people from perhaps the States who are listening to this podcast, we will be back on tour. As for London, UK, and Europe, I am sure there's something cooking for, in regards to JCS. This is not the end of it. And personally, I'll be in the US tour. We don't know yet because we're waiting to see what happens with the whole theatrical situation. And I personally have a few things going on in Spain. Right now I'm trying to focus on Spain. But yeah, things are coming up soon. People can follow me at an Instagram at the Pepe Nufrio, and I post all my crap over there.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, of course. And if you do go on Pepe's Instagram, you may see a sneak peek of Gethsemane.
Yes, there's a little something over there, but I'm sure. Well, with this little video that we found, I'm sure you'll put it up here.
Of course, definitely go check it out. But honestly, ladies and gentlemen, this has been season 2, episode 12 of the Reckless Comedy Podcast. My guests have been Pepe Nufrio. The funny thing is, just as we're ending this podcast, my co-host has finally got home.
Yes.
Now wants to come on and talk. Oh, come on. Well, you know what?
Ashley.
Well, me and Pepe, Ashley, if you're listening to this, me and Pepe, we'll have to get Pepe back on again. Definitely.
Oh, we'll do it again. We'll do it again, without a doubt.
Oh, definitely. We'll have to obviously, we have a second show in the US called Cafe Con Leche, who Ashley runs, and she talks to lots of musicians and stuff like that. So, so we'll definitely try and organize to get you on that. But ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. I will end